The Tales of the Laxdale Saga is brought to you by Notaprofit.org, the place on the internet to find spiritual guidance powered by artificial intelligence. The Laxdale Saga, Part 11, Chapter LXII. The description of his enemies brought to Helgi. Now we must tell what happened at the dairy where Helgi was, and with him the men that were named before. In the morning Helgi told his shepherd to go through the woods in the neighborhood of the dairy, and look out for people passing, and take heed of whatever else he saw, to tell news of, for my dreams have gone heavily tonight. The lad went even as Helgi told him. He was away a while, and when he came back Helgi asked what he had seen to tell tidings of. He answered, I have seen what I think is stuff for tidings. Helgi asked what that was. He said he had seen men, and none so few either, and I think they must have come from beyond this countryside. Helgi spoke, Where were they when you saw them, and what were they doing, or did you take heed of the manner of raiment, or their looks? He answered, I was not so much taken aback at the sight, as not to mind those matters, for I knew you would ask about them. He also said they were but short away from the dairy, and were eating their morning meal. Helgi asked if they sat in a ring, or side by side in a line. He said they sat in a ring, on their saddles. Helgi said, Tell me now of their looks, and I will see if I can guess from they looked like who the men may be. The lad said, There sat a man in a stained saddle, in a blue cloak. He was great of growth, and valiant looking. He was bald in front, and somewhat tooth-bare. Helgi said, I know that man clearly from your tale. There you have seen Thorgils Hallason, from west out of Horde. Dale, I wonder what he wants with us, the hero. The lad spoke. Next to him sat a man in a gilded saddle. He had on a scarlet kirtle, and a gold ring on his arm, and a gold embroidered fillet was tied round his head. This man had yellow hair, waving down over his shoulders. He was fair of hue, with a knot on his nose, which was somewhat turned up at the tip, with very fine eyes, blue-eyed and swift-eyed, and with a glance somewhat restless, broad-browed and full-cheeked. He had his hair cut across his forehead. He was well grown as to breadth of shoulders and depth of chest. He had very beautiful hands and strong-looking arms. All his bearing was courteous, and in a word, I have never seen a man so altogether doughty-looking. He was a young-looking man too, for his lips had grown no beard, but it seemed to me he was aged by grief. Then Helgi answers, You have paid a careful heed indeed to this man, and of much account he must needs be. Yet this man, I think, I have never seen, so I must make a guess at it who he is. There, I think, must have been Bolli Bollison, for I am told he has in him the makings of a man. Then the lad went on. Next there sat a man on an enamelled saddle in a yellow-green kirtle. He had a great ring on his hand. This man was most goodly to behold, and must still be young of age. His hair was auburn, and most comely, and in every way he was most courtly. Helgi answers, I think I know who this man is, of whom you have now been telling. He must be Thorleik Bollison, and a sharp and mindful man you are. The lad said again, Next sat a young man. He was in a blue kirtle and black breeches, and his tunic tucked into them. This man was straight-faced, light of hair, with a goodly, featured face, slender and graceful. Helgi answered, I know that man, for I must have seen him, though at a time when he was quite young. For it must be Thord Thordson, fosterling of Snorri the priest, and a very courtly band they have, the Westfirthers. What is there yet to tell? Then the lad said, There sat a man on a Scotch saddle, hoary of beard and very sallow of hue, with black curly hair, somewhat unsightly and yet warrior-like. He had on a grey pleated cape. Helgi said, I clearly see who that man is. There is Lambi, the son of Thorbjorn from Salmon, River, Dale, but I cannot think why he should be in the train of these brothers. The lad spake, There sat a man on a pommelled saddle, and had on a blue cloak for an overall, with a silver ring on his arm. He was a farmer-looking sort of man, and past the prime of life, with dark auburn long curly hair, and scars about his face. Now the tale grows worse by much. Said Helgi, for there you must have seen Thorstein the Black, my brother-in-law, and a wondrous thing indeed I deem it, that he should be in this journey, nor would I ever offer him such a raid. But what more is there still to tell? He answered, next there sat two men like each other to look upon, and might have been of middle age. Most brisk they looked, red of hair, freckled of face, yet goodly to behold. Helgi said, I can clearly understand who those men are. They are the sons of Armod foster, brothers of Thorgils, Halldor and Ornolf, and a very trustworthy fellow you are. But have you now told the tale of all the men you saw? He answered, I have but little to add now. Next there sat a man and looked out of the circle. He was in a plate, corselet, and had a steel cap on his head, with a brim a hand's breadth wide. He bore a shining axe on his shoulder, the edge of which must have measured an ell in length. This man was dark of hue, black-eyed, and most Viking-like. Helgi answered, I clearly know this man from your tale, where has been Hunbogi the strong, son of Alfo Dales. But what I find so hard to make out is, what they want journeying with such a very picked company. The lad spoke again, and still there sat a man next to this strong looking one, dark auburn of hair, thick-faced and red-faced, heavy of brow, of a tall middle size. Helgi said, you need not tell the tale further. There must have been Svein, son of Alfo Dales, brother of Hunbogi. Now it would be as well not to stand shiftless in the face of these men, for near to my mind's foreboding it is, that they are minded to have a meeting with me, or ever they leave this countryside. Moreover, in this train there are men who would hold that it would have been but and meet, though this our meeting should have taken a good long time before this. Now all the women who are in the dairy slip on quickly men's dress and take the horses that are about the dairy, and ride as quickly as possible to the winter dwelling. It may be that those who are besetting us about will not know whether men or women be riding there. They need give us only a short respite, till we bring men together here, and then it is not so certain on which side the outlook will be most hopeful. The women now rode off, four together. Thorgils misdoubts him lest news of their coming may have reached Helgi, and so bade the others take their horses and ride after them at their swiftest, and so they did. But before they mounted a man came riding up to them openly in all men's sight. He was small of growth, and all on the alert, wondrously swift of glance, and had a lively horse. This man greeted Thorgils in a familiar manner, and Thorgils asked him his name and family, and also whence he had come. He said his name was Hrapp, and he was from Broadfirth on his mother's side. And then I grew up, and I bear the name of Hrapp. With the name follows that I am nowise an easy one to deal with, albeit I am small of growth, but I am a Southlander on my father's side, and have tarried in the south for some winters. Now this is a lucky chance, Thorgils, I have happened on you here, for I was minded to come and see you anyhow, even though I should find it a business somewhat hard to follow up. I have a trouble on hand. I have fallen out with my master, and have had from him a treatment none of the best. But it goes with the name that I will stand no man such shameful mishandling, so I made an outset at him. But I guess I wounded him little or not at all, for I did not wait long enough to see for myself, but thought myself safe when I got on to the back of this nag, which I took from the good man. Hrapp says much, but asks for few things. Yet soon he got to know that they were minded to set on Helgi, and that pleased him very much, and he said they would not have to look for him behind. Chapter LXIV. The Death of Helgi A.D. 1019. Thorgils and his followers, as soon as they were on horseback, set off at a hard ride, and rode now out of the wood. They saw 4 men riding away from the dairy, and they rode very fast too. Seeing this, some of Thorgils' companions said they had better ride after them at their swiftest. Then said Thorleik Bollison, we will just go to the dairy and see what men are there, for I think it less likely that these be Helgi and his followers. It seems to me that those are only women. A good many of them gainsaid this. Thorgils said that Thorleik should rule in the matter, for he knew that he was a very far-sighted man. They now turned to the dairy. Hrapp rode first, shaking the stick he carried in his hand, and thrusting it forward in front of himself, and saying now was high time to try one's self. Helgi and his followers were not aware of anything till Thorgils and his company had surrounded the dairy. Helgi and his men shut the door and seized their weapons. A Hrapp leapt forthwith upon the roof of the dairy, and asked if old Reynard was in. Helgi answered, "You will come to take for granted that he who is here within is somewhat hurtful, and will know how to bite near the warren." And forthwith Helgi thrust his spear out through the window and through 8 Hrapp, so that he fell dead to earth from the spear. Thorgils bade the others go heedfully and beware of mishaps, for we have plenty of means wherewith to get the dairy into our power, and to overcome Helgi, placed as he is now, for I am given to think that here but few men are gathered together. The dairy was rigged over one roof beam, resting on 2 gables, so that the ends the beam stuck out beyond each gable. There was a single turf thatch on the house, which had not yet grown together. Then Thorgils told some of his men to go to the beam ends, and pull them so hard that either the beam should break or else the rafters should slip in off it. But others were to guard the door lest those within should try and get out. 5 they were, Helgi and his within the dairy Hardbein, his son to wit. He was 12 years old, his shepherd, and 2 other men, who had come to him that summer, being outlaws, one called Thorgils and the other Eyjolf. Thorstein the Black and Svein, son of Alf O'Dales, stood before the door. The rest of the company were tearing the roof off the dairy. Hunbogi the strong and the sons of Armod took one end of the beam, Thorgils, Lambi, and Gudrun's sons the other end. They now pull hard at the beam till it broke asunder in the middle. Just at this Hardbein thrust a halberd out through where the door was broken, and the thrust struck the steel cap of Thorstein, black and stuck in his forehead, and that was a very great wound. Then Thorstein said, as was true, that there were men before them. Next Helgi leapt so boldly out of the door, so that those nearest shrunk aback. Thorgils was standing near, and struck after him with a sword, and caught him on the shoulder, and made a great wound. Helgi turned to meet him, and had a wood axe in his hand, and said, "Still the old one will dare to look at and face weapons." And therewith he flung the axe at Thorgils, and the axe struck his foot, and a great one that was. And when Bolli saw this, he leapt forward at Helgi with Footbiter in his hand, and thrust Helgi through with it, and that was his death blow. Helgi's followers leapt out of the dairy forthwith, and Hardbein with them. Thorleik Bollison turned against Eyjolf, who was a strong man. Thorleik struck him with his sword, and it caught him on the leg above the knee, and cut off his leg, and he fell to earth dead. Hunbogi the strong went to meet Thorgils, and dealt a blow at him with an axe, and it struck the back of him, and cut him asunder in the middle. Thord Cat was standing near where Hardbein leapt out, and was going to set upon him straightway, but Bolli rushed forward when he saw it, and bade no harm be done to Hardbein. No man shall do a dastard's work here, and Hardbein shall have life and limbs spared. Helgi had another son named Skorri. He was brought up at England in Reekdale, the southernmost. Chapter LXIV. Of Gudrun's deceit after these deeds, Thorgils and his band rode away over the neck to Reekdale, where they declared these manslaughters on their hands. Then they rode the same way westward as they had ridden from the west, and did not stop their journey till they came to Hord, Dale. They now told the tidings of what had happened in their journey, which became most famous, for it was thought a great deed to have felled such a hero as was Helgi. Thorgils thanked his men well for the journey, and the sons of Bolli did the same. And now the men part who had been in Thorgils' train. Lambi rode west to Salmon, River, Dale, and came first to Herdholt, and told his kinsmen most carefully the tidings of what had happened in Skorradale. They were very ill, pleased with his journey, and laid heavy reproaches upon him, saying he had shown himself much more of the stock of Thorbjorn Esgearjup than of that of Miocjartan, the Irish king. Lambi was very angry at their talk, and said they knew but little of good manners in overwhelming him with reproaches, for I have dragged you out of death, says he. After that they exchanged but few words, for both sides were yet more fulfilled of ill will than before. Lambi now rode home to his manor. Thorgils Hallason rode out to Hollafell, and with him the sons of Gudrun and his foster. brothers Halldor and Ornolf. They came late in the evening to Hallafell, when all men were in bed. Gudrun rose up and bade the household get up and wait upon them. She went into the guest chamber and greeted Thorgils and all the others, and asked for tidings. Thorgils returned Gudrun's greeting. He had laid aside his cloak and his weapons as well, and sat then up against the pillars. Thorgils had on a red-brown kirtle, and had round his waist a broad silver belt. Gudrun sat down on the bench by him. Then Thorgils said this stave to Hel: "Gis home a raid we led, gave ravens corp, surpassed a swallow, we died shield. Wands won with blood all red, as Thorleik's lead our band did follow. And at our hands there perished 3 keen helmet stems, 2 accounted truly as worthies of the folk, and we claim Bolli now's avenged full duly." Gudrun asked them most carefully for the tidings of what had happened on their journey. Thorgils told her all she wished. Gudrun said the journey had been most stirringly carried out, and bade them have her thanks for it. After that food was set before them, and after they had eaten they were shown to bed, and slept the rest of the night. The next day Thorgils went to talk to Gudrun, and said, "Now the matter stands thus, as you know, Gudrun, that I have brought to an end the journey you bade me undertake, and I must claim that, in a full manly wise, that matter has been turned out of hand. You will also call to mind what you promised me in return, and I think I am now entitled to that prize." Then Gudrun said, "It is not such a long time since we last talked together that I should have forgotten what we said, and my only aim is to hold to all I agreed to as concerning you. Or what does your mind tell you as to how matters were bespoken between us?" Thorgils said she must remember that, and Gudrun answered, "I think I said that of men within this land I would marry none but you. Or have you aught to say against that?" Thorgils said she was right. "That is well then." Said Gudrun, "that our memory should be one and the same on this matter, and I will not put it off from you any longer, that I am minded to think tint it is not fated to me to be your wife. Yet I deem that I fulfil to you all uttered words, though I marry Thorkel Eyjolfsson, who at present is not in this land." Then Thorgils said, and flushed up very much, "Clearly I do see from whence that chill wave comes running, and from thence cold counsels have always come to me. I know that this is the counsel of Snorri the priest." Thorgils sprang up from this talk, and was very angry, and went to his followers, and said he would ride away. Thorleik disliked very much that things should have taken such a turn as to go against Thorgils' will, but Bolli was at one with his mother's will herein. Gudrun said she would give Thorgils some good gifts and soften him by that means, but Thorleik said that would be of no use, for Thorgils is far too high mettled a man to stoop to trifles in a matter of this sort. Gudrun said in that case he must console himself as best he could at home. After this Thorgils rode from Hallafell with his foster brothers. He got home to his manor mightily ill at ease over his lot. Chapter LXIV. Osvif and just die, that winter Osvif fell ill and died, and a great loss that was deemed, for he had been the greatest of sages. Osvif was buried at Hallafell, for Gudrun had had a church built there. That same winter just Odilifsson fell ill, and as the sickness grew heavy on him, he called to him Thord the Low, his son, and said, "My mind forebodes me that this sickness will put an end to our living together. I wish my body to be carried to Hallafell, for that will be the greatest place about these countrysides, for I have often seen a light burning there." Thereupon Gest died. The winter had been very cold, and there was much ice about, and Broadfirth was laid under ice so far out that no ship could get over it from Bardastrand. Gest's body lay in state 2 nights at Helgi, and that very night there sprang up such a gale that all the ice was drawn away from the land, and the next day the weather was fair and still. Then Thord took a ship and put Gest's body on board, and went south across Broad Firth that day, and came in the evening to Hallafell. Thord had a good welcome there, and stayed there through the night. In the morning Gest's body was buried, and he and Osvif rested in one grave. So Gest's soothsaying was fulfilled, in that now it was shorter between them than at the time when one dwelt at Bardastrand and the other in Sailingstale. Thord the Low then went home as soon as he was ready. That next night a wild storm arose, and drove the ice on to the land again, where it held on long through the winter, so that there was no going about in boats. Men thought this most marvellous, that the weather had allowed Jest's body to be taken across when there was no crossing before nor afterwards during the winter,